Hello and welcome to the 3-time award-winning Tough Girl podcast, which is all about motivating and inspiring you while increasing the amount of female role models in the media. I'm your host, Sarah Williams. If you love adventure, challenge, and hearing from women who share their stories and provide top tips and advice to help you take on your own personal challenges, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out. New episodes go live every Tuesday at 7 a.m. UK time, with bonus episodes happening on a Thursday. You can support the Tough Girl mission by signing up as a patron by visiting Patreon, patreon.com/Tough Girl Podcast. Keep listening until the very end as I share more information about what's going on with me, with Tough Girl challenges, give shout outs, and recommend other Tough Girl podcast episodes. More information can be found at toughgirlchallenges.com.
I'm Christine Reed. I am a thru-hiker and trail runner, and I'm currently based in Taos, New Mexico. And I have been writing books and stories about my time on trail for some years now.
And so have you always been outdoorsy? I mean, when you were growing up, what did your early years look like? Did you have siblings? Were you brought up in the city or in the countryside or on the coast? What did that look like?
Yeah, outdoorsy, absolutely not. I very lovingly refer to my entire family as indoorsy people. I read a lot of books as a child, so I think that was more of a natural progression for me. But I read a blog about the Appalachian Trail on the East Coast in the US in 2013, and I just can't believe how much time has passed since then now. But it was kind of my first intro to hiking and specifically backpacking, long distance hiking. And, people just talked about the AT with this awe and wonder and talked about how amazing it was and how it changed their life. And the blogs really drew me in and made me want to do that, even though I had never had any interest in hiking before.
So what were you doing at that point? What stage of life were you at? Was this teenage, early 20s? Were you doing anything sort of corporate-y or charity work? Or, what were you doing at that point when you were reading these blogs?
I had just graduated from college and was working in health insurance. So I had a desk job in Little Rock, Arkansas, and I was pretty unhappy, honestly. I had graduated from college and I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. And so I was sort of just doing what was in front of me. And I think that's one of the reasons that the AT was so appealing, was just this desire to be doing literally anything other than what I was doing. And so it sort of offered this window of wow, these people are talking about how amazing and exciting this is, and that's got to be better than this sitting at a desk thing that I'm doing.
And this is the bit which always, I honestly, this is the bit which fascinates me, because it's taking it from this, because I know people who'll be scrolling on the internet or, reading blog posts or watching YouTube videos or, seeing things on social media and just thinking, wouldn't it be amazing if I could do something like that? And, reading about it, dreaming about it, thinking about what life would be like. But I think taking that step to committing, that journey of getting to the start line of the Appalachian Trail for you, talk us through that in a little bit more detail. Were you planned and organized? Were you more sort of let's just quit the job and figure it out as we go? Talk us through that stage.
Yeah, I think one of the things I noticed once I got out onto the trail is that it seemed like everybody out there was in some phase of transition in their life. So there was a lot of post-high school, post-college kind of young people. And then there was a lot of post-divorce, post-retirement, older people. And I think that I just happened to find my way to this at a time when I had the availability and it was possible for me to leave my life and go do this for 6 months. And I did. I took a year to plan or to research, kind of figure out what I was doing after I learned about the AT, because I didn't have any of the skills or knowledge. So when I happened upon this blog in the fall of 2013, I thought spring 2014 to go out is going to be too soon. I'm not going to be ready. And so I planned for 2015, and somehow I was able to sort of keep myself pointed in that direction and stay focused on that goal. I think a lot of times people find out about things like thru-hiking and they're either really excited about it in the moment, but things in life start to happen and you get redirected, or it's just not a time that you can step away, walk away. And whether that's like financial or familial responsibilities or just fear, I think sometimes. Yeah, but I think it's really about like finding something that you're excited about and saying like I am going to forego all other opportunities to make this one thing happen. And that just isn't possible for everybody at every moment in time.
Oh God, 1,000%. And for me as well, I find it's like I have to make like a big commitment. So it's either like, especially like if I'm doing like a hike abroad, it's like I just get the flight booked in, and it's like,
Hmm.
keep searching, put a Google alert on. So when the flights go dirt cheap, it's like it's booked, it's locked in my calendar. So whether this is like 6 months, 8 months, 9 months in advance, it's like that's what I'm going to be doing, because then nothing else can derail it. I can just keep focused on that. But to us, like that sounds like a really sensible amount of time to actually to plan and to actually figure this out. And had you done much hiking or backpacking, and how did you go about gaining the skills? Were you able to join any groups or learn online? How did that work for you?
Yeah, I had never backpacked before. I had probably done, I don't know, 3 or 4 day hikes in my life. Like once at sixth grade camp, we went for a hike. And when I started college, I went on a couple of hikes in the area with either friends or guys that I was seeing. And I hated it and was miserable the whole time because I was not an athletic person or fit at all. And so hiking had always been sort of like a torturous experience for me. And when I decided I wanted to do the AT, I started doing a ton of research. I found out a ton of stuff about gear. This was 2013, 14. So like YouTube existed, Instagram existed, like these platforms existed, but like the outdoor culture and the amount of knowledge like from creators, from outdoorsy creators, like was not like it is now. And I certainly didn't know how to access it. I wasn't on even Instagram back then. So I was getting all my information from this platform called whiteblaze.net, which was like an old school kind of like pinboard forum where people would post questions and then just other people would answer them. And I like read about like how to pick out a backpacking stove, how to like whether or not you should use trekking poles, sort of just like super basic information. And I just kind of followed like what I found. And some of that was useful information, and some of it I later found out was not. But I did basically zero physical preparation. I got all the gear. I kind of knew what I needed to have. I got all of my food figured out and like the logistics of being on trail. And I got a guidebook, right? Like I had sort of all of the like mental preparation and the like having the items I needed. But I moved to Yosemite National Park 6 months before the AT thinking I'm going to like meet cool outdoorsy people. I'm going to do a bunch of hiking. I'm going to like practice using my gear. And then I didn't do any of those things. And so when I arrived at the AT, I was basically I had never put my pack on fully loaded before.
Oh God. But in a way I can almost relate, because I mean I'd done like Duke of Edinburgh Award, which is a scheme we have in the UK. So I had, I tent and camped and all that sort of stuff. But
Hmm.
I hadn't slept in a tent for years. Or maybe no, I hadn't. Before I did Appalachian Trail. And I remember a very kind, because I couldn't actually afford a tent at that point, and a very kind friend offered me her tent. It was like a 1 or 2 person Terra Nova tent. And she came round, she showed me how to put it up. I had a practice of putting it up in the garden at home, and that was it.
Yeah.
and then you just
Yeah.
and then you just sort of like head off. But so you hadn't put on a fully loaded pack before. Okay, I'm liking this. I'm liking it. So take us back to the start. Like if you obviously I know it was a few years ago now, but those feelings must still sort of like pop up, like whether it was like feelings of fear or excitement or like ridiculousness, like what am I doing?
Yeah, definitely that one. I mean, I certainly in the summer leading up to, I had kind of individually used some of my gear. So I'd gone on like a car camping trip where I like used my tent a little bit, and I like took my backpacking stove out on a day hike to be like, I'm gonna cook some food on a day hike, like at the top of this mountain. And so I knew how to use like individual pieces of gear, but yeah, the day that I put on my full backpack to get on the bus in Little Rock to go to the start of the trail, I remember being in the living room and both of my parents did not want me doing this. And so I had to be like really cool about it. I was like, okay, backpack, like put it on my shoulders. And I was like, I'm going to fall over like a turtle onto my back. And I can't let my parents see that because they think that I don't know what I'm doing and shouldn't be doing this. So I had to like hoist this pack was probably close to 45 pounds and like get it out to the car and like chuck it in there. And when we got to the bus station, my dad picked it up and he's like, oh my God, this is so heavy. And my dad's like 6'2", like he's a pretty big guy. And he picked it up and was like, you're not going to carry that. And I was like, yep, okay, bye. Like ran away with it. And then I rode Greyhound buses from Little Rock, Arkansas to Memphis, Tennessee, to Nashville, to Atlanta. And that in itself was a wild experience. I had never taken public transit like that. And I was like, okay, like 16 hours on buses, got to the start of the trail and started up. The very first part of the trail at Amalicola Falls is like a huge staircase. And I remember going up the stairs going like, oh, I've made a huge mistake. I was like trying to get up this staircase without looking like I'm dying. And of course, there's like, it's a state park. So there's people day hiking and just like hanging out. It's a big waterfall. Like people go there just to see the waterfall. And so people are running up and down the staircase next to me. And I'm like barely going like one step every like 30 seconds. And I thought, oh, I'm not even going to make it to the trail. Like, I'm going to die. I'm going to die out here. And then that first night I camped at a shelter. It was me and another gal who I think also was fairly inexperienced. And we were both quite young, like just out of college. And I remember sleeping in the little bunks with her and we heard a noise. And both of us were like, oh my God, there's something out there. And it was just like, you can do all the preparation in terms of buying the gear, but
Yeah.
if you haven't actually done the thing, like you just don't know what the experience physically and mentally is going to be. And I think it was really easy for me ahead of time because so many people were expressing doubt and acting like I was crazy. And like I had this really defiant, like, I'm going to be totally fine. Like, you guys are all overreacting. And that is a really nice shield until you get out there and you're like, oh no, like, this isn't at all what I thought it was going to be.
I mean, I know hindsight can be like a wonderful thing, but
Hmm.
when you first started doing the trail, was there anything? Were you going with a particular aim? Like you might not have been, but like obviously the goal of completing it and doing the through hike that's it. But was there something deeper that you were hoping to? I don't know, figure out. Like, were you just trying to not cheesy as it sounds, but like really find yourself and figure out what you wanted to do with your life?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I guess I was 24 when I started the trail. I turned 25 about 2 weeks later. And I certainly was kind of in that like independence seeking phase of like, I've kind of done everything everyone has told me to do up until now. And I need to figure out what I want
Mm.
and who I want to be, how I want to show up in the world. And honestly, I had never done anything hard before. As a young person, like school came very naturally to me. I was like educationally, like stuff was just easy. And my parents only cared that I do well in school. So like my entire childhood, I very easily met the expectations that were set out for me. And I never pushed myself in any other direction to do anything that was hard. And so doing something physically challenging was very metaphorical for me to be like, okay, I can do hard things. I think honestly, that was like probably the biggest sort of unspoken goal was just to do something that was hard that I had chosen for myself.
Have you always been a writer? Were you sort of journaling throughout this process? Did you know that you'd end up writing a book about it?
Not at all. And I do talk a little bit about the Appalachian Trail in my first book, but it's really more about a later hike I did on the Wonderland Trail. So I have, there's a few snapshots from the AT in there, but I didn't document it all. I have like maybe 5 photos from the AT because I just wasn't in that mindset at all. I was very much like, I'm here to do this thing. And, I wasn't, it's kind of it was pre my existence on social media. So I was like, what would I do with these photos anyway? I didn't have any need for them.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I look back and I think I've only got, and it seems ridiculous now in comparison to how I document and share my adventures and travels now. But from the Appalachian Trail, I look back on that, but I think I only had like 10 photos. Like I didn't really track it at all. Like, and they they're not even good photos. Like I just didn't really know. I don't know. You just sort of just put stuff up. Whereas now I'm really like quite. I have like a system where it's like, the number of days, how many miles, like it's all tracked, like how much money I spent. Did I sleep in a tent? Did I sleep in a shelter? Sometimes I was recording like what food I was eating. So it's all like tracked and stats. And I gave like marks out of 10 for the days. But I look back on the Appalachian Trail and I've got the videos, thank goodness, because I don't know about you, but it all sort of it blurs for me now. Like many of my hikes, like it's just becomes like you remember like a high moment or a low moment, but otherwise the days just sort of run into each other. And obviously, it's a huge trail, 14 states, 2,200 miles, but your first sort of real experience of being out there and I suppose, being independent, doing a hard thing, doing it. Well, I say solo, but with other people on the trail
Hmm.
as well, and also just with maybe that doubt that friends or family might have about you doing something like this, like, and big question. But I suppose looking back now, like, what did you learn about yourself from that, like, initial through hike?
Yeah. I mean, gosh, it changed my life in a lot of ways. And I do think a big part of it was learning that I could do hard things. And I will say, like, disclaimer, I did not finish the Appalachian Trail, but things happened that were unexpected. Just a few days after I started the trail, my mom passed, and I had to leave the trail, go back home, do like memorial service stuff. And then I was really not sure that I would go back out until someone asked me, like, when are you going back on the AT? And I was like, I don't know. Like, my mom just died. I don't really know if that's appropriate. And I spent a little time at home and I decided, all of the reasons I wanted to go do the trail are still true. And all the things that I was looking for, I still want and need. And, I kind of let go of my attachment to the idea that I was going to hike the whole trail. And I went out with this mentality of like, I'm just going to do it until it doesn't feel like the right thing to do anymore. And until I feel like I've gotten something out of the experience. So I ended up hiking up like about 650 miles. And for someone who had never backpacked before, I felt like that was enough for me to be able to say, I can do hard things, right? Like every single day of that time was hard physically and mentally and emotionally now because I was like grieving, dealing with my mother's death. So it shaped my experience into something quite different than what I thought I was going to get out of the trail. But it was also such an opportunity for me to process what was going on in my life in a way that I would never have been able to do somewhere else. So, in addition to kind of checking these boxes of like, I did something really hard and I feel more confident in myself and my ability to like face challenges, and I made a decision for myself, and I had this sort of independence experience where it was like day by day, I'm making my own decisions. I'm not relying on other people to help me or ask me what I should do or yeah, like I wasn't shaping my experience around the people around me for the first time in my life. So I did get sort of the things I went out there for, but I also got this like really intense grieving process that I didn't know I was going to need.
Oh, I wish I could give you a big hug down the screen. Oh, that that's just it really does change everything, doesn't it? Like especially like you're going out there to find yourself and to do hard things and because it becomes so much more than that. And I suppose the thing that I got from the Appalachian Trail was is you have this time to actually properly think and reflect and I suppose in your case it's just be thinking about your mum and just wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I don't know how it is in the UK, but like Americans, we suck at grief. We suck at death. We don't know how to handle it. We don't talk about it very well. And we aren't prepared for it when it happens. And we have this just like every death is such a tragedy mindset. And then we don't heal and we don't grieve and we just sort of stuff it in a box. and like try to move on with our lives and distract ourselves with work and distract ourselves with the people around us. Like we just don't deal with it. And I think the trail at that juncture in my life was such an opportunity and invitation to say, like, you're going to think about this every single day. You're going to think about your feelings. You're going to feel your feelings and you're going to talk about your feelings. And I had wonderful encounters with other hikers who had either experienced similar grief or just gave me the invitation to like talk about my experience because we're just walking all day. And I can't imagine any scenario outside of the trail where I would have processed my experience in nearly as like healthy of a way that like allowed me to then go forward in my life.
Yeah. Feel your feelings. Like, oh, it's almost like I think in the UK especially, like when I know someone who's lost someone, you need to bring it up. You need to go over and say, like, I'm so sorry for your loss. And for me, it's almost like, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry.
Oh,
Because then you'll make the other person cry. You don't want to cause them to be upset, but you can't ignore it. And so then the longer you leave it, it's just like you've got to say something, but it's just so hard to, to yeah, to feel your feelings. And I think it did give you that I suppose that processing time. And you said, you covered the, 650 miles and you felt, when you were ready to leave the trail. And what happened after leaving the trail? What was next for you?
I spent the rest of the time that I had blocked out to be on trail at my dad's with him. And it was nice because we saw each other at the memorial service and I spent 10 days at home. And then I went back on the trail and he was sort of shipping my food boxes. And so we were talking on the phone, but usually only for about 5 minutes. And then I went home for, gosh, probably close to 3 months. And we just spent time together. And my dad and I had not had a super close relationship before. I was always much closer with my mom. And that time, seeing him in that state and like being there to support him for that period of time brought us a lot closer together. And I'm so, so grateful for that little facet of this whole experience was like, I got to go spend this time with my dad. And like, we have such a closer relationship now, partly because I had planned to take the 6 months off of my life and do the trail. And I was able to use some of that time. So again, like I wouldn't probably have had the experience of like spending quality time with my dad after her death if I hadn't been planning to hike the Appalachian Trail before. And after that, I moved to Denver, Colorado, and kind of tried to like rejoin the normal world. I got an apartment, got a job, was like doing all the normal things and lived there for a few years until I was just like, I don't think I can do this. Like after being on trail and sort of living this alternative life for a short period of time, it was just really, really hard for me to re-engage with the like day to day of the capitalist American system. And so after a few years, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go live in a van. I'm going to travel around. I'm going to hike. I'm going to just pursue this more active adventure lifestyle and kind of take a break from the like normie existence and see if that feels better.
Did it feel better for you?
I think on some level, yes. It felt more natural to me after having been out hiking and sort of had this like, oh, like this is how spacious life can feel. It felt like another access to that point. Like I have said often that I think through hikers make great van lifers because there is so much similarity in the experience. And I think if you can survive with like just what's on your back, having everything that's in a vehicle is like luxury. So certainly for a while, like I got on the road, I was struggling still a little bit with these concepts of independence. And I was certainly pretty lonely when I first got on the road because it's not, I would say the one big difference culturally between the two activities is that when you're through hiking, there are thousands of hikers around you and you meet new people every single day. And the community aspect is such a part of the trail experience, especially on the Appalachian Trail. And so I think when I moved into my first van, I was kind of expecting to find that really easily. And I struggled because of the the like loneliness aspect of kind of like going around in my vehicle in my little turtle shell and like not having immediate access to people who were doing the same thing as me. But I found my way in that.
So are you now, are you still van lifing? Are you know, is what are you doing currently? Are you still hiking, writing books? Is this your full-time job now, your full-time life?
Sort of, but also no. I'm actually in a new phase of transition. I guess exactly 10 years after my AT hike, I just moved into a little house in New Mexico and am kind of like just sort of feeling into like living in a place again. But I have been, I mean, I was on the road full time for almost 7 years and doing the author bit basically from 2018 until now, mostly as a full-time job. So I've worked occasionally like seasonal jobs here and there just to make a little bit of money. But my business as a writer has nearly supported me through this whole time.
That's amazing. I love hearing that. And you know, your most recent book is called Blood, Sweat, Tears. I'd love for you to share more about the book, its concept, and what it looks like.
Sure. Yeah. So my first book came out in 2021. And afterwards, I went on a book tour and had seen some amount of success. And I had a lot of people asking me, well, what are you writing next? When is the next book coming out? And I tried for a few years to write a second memoir. I tried for about a year to write an outdoor adventure romance novel. I had all these ideas about stories I wanted to tell and things I wanted to say. And none of them were working for me. Like, as I would sit down and try to write, I would get lost, frustrated. Like, it just wasn't coming out in the same way that Alone in Wonderland seemed to like flow out of me. And so I was getting kind of frustrated. And I was talking to another gal at Appalachian Trail Days, which is like a big festival along the AT in Virginia. And we were both there with our first books. And I was asking her, what are you going to write next? Right. The question that was torturing me day by day. And so I was just like, you know, tell me about what you're working on. And she was talking about writing a guidebook and she asked what I wanted to do. And I told her kind of what I'd been trying to make happen. And I said, I also have always thought it would be cool to put together a collection of stories by other women. And she was like, oh my gosh, yes, like do that. Tell me more about that. And I sort of tricked myself into thinking that if I had a bunch of other people write the book for me, it would be easier. And so I put out a call for pitches. Specifically, I wanted the book to be about women's relationships to our bodies using trail as like an avenue, because that was something I was really struggling with. And I wanted to hear other people's stories. And I also thought it was something we need to be talking about. And so I put out a call for pitches or for submissions, kind of with the framework of like, I want to hear your period stories. I want to hear your injury, illness, body dysmorphia, addiction, like just anything that has to do with your relationship to your body and how the trail has helped you either see something new with it, learn something, heal something. And that can be hiking, backpacking, mountaineering, or trail running. So I had sort of this like broad umbrella of trail. And I sort of just like held my breath for 8 weeks while the submission period was open because I wanted the book to have 15 stories in it. And I was hoping to get 100 submissions to choose from. And I was absolutely blown away. I got nearly 200 submissions, and they were so beautiful, so vulnerable, so intense. And it was just everything that I wished I could get out of myself, but from hundreds of women who were desperate to share these stories. And I was like, okay, like this is, you know, I knew when I came up with the idea and was talking to that other woman at Trail Days, I was like, I really think this could be a powerful collection and a powerful book of stories that haven't been told. And when I read through the submissions, which took me 2 weeks after I got all of them, I was like, yeah, this needs to exist for sure.
And I love the fact that you've pulled it all together and that it felt right. In my head, I'm just thinking like 200 submissions from women sharing about their relationship to their body on the trail, whether that is motherhood, disordered eating, grief, menopause, body image, menstruation, sobriety, identity, all of those different things. I'm just thinking that would, if you did, that's a 4-year podcast releasing one a week. Like just even you just, reading it out and talking and, talking about each one. Like I don't even know how you narrowed it down because, this is part of, I suppose, like my passion and love is sharing other women's stories so that women's voices are just so important. How did you even go about narrowing it down? Were there ones which just obviously did this, that must have, how long did it take you? Like,
Yeah, it was really hard. It took me long, every step along the way took me longer than I thought it was going to, of course. But yeah, just even reading all the stories and narrowing it was probably about 6 to 8 weeks. And it's so funny. I invited my best friend over and I was like, hey, like come over and read all these stories with me and we can like chit chat about them and you can help me sort of like figure out what's going to go in the book. And she came over and spent 9 hours at my house reading stories and we hadn't even gotten halfway through, we had each read like, a few and had a little bit of back and forth about like what's good about this one, what's strong, what's not strong. And I ended up having to read all of them twice and a couple of them 3 times. And I basically did like a sorting system where I would read them and go like either immediately yes, immediately no, or maybe. And unfortunately, the immediately no pile was so small. And so it's like, okay, now I have to go back and reread all the yeses and say like, okay, what topics are we missing? What needs to be addressed? And then in the maybes, it was very like, okay, like here's 4 stories that are talking about eating disorder. Like which one is going to go in because I can't have all of them. And there was a lot of, there was several motherhood stories that did make it in, but they were all kind of coming at motherhood from different angles. There was a lot of how can we cover as much ground as possible between what was submitted. And so it kind of felt a little bit like a puzzle because there was a lot of overlap in some of the stories, but everybody had their own little like, oh, but I really love this part of this story. Oh, but I really like that this person spoke about this. And I really did, I would say there was probably 2 stories from the original submissions that I was like, wow, I could publish this as it is because it's so beautifully written. But when I put out the call for submissions, I very specifically said, you do not have to be a professional writer. I just want to hear what you have to say. And so there were a lot of stories from women who'd never written anything before, but they really had something there in the core of the story that I was like, yes, this is what I want to share. So the editing process was really intense because there was a lot of like elevating the writing that needed to happen. And that also made the decision really hard because there was a couple of stories that I was like, these are beautifully written. Like this person is clearly a writer. And then there was a lot of stories that I was like, this is going to need a lot of work. But I had never edited anything before and was sort of just like, I'll figure it out. And so as going through the submissions, I was able to look at something and say, like, I really think this has a lot of potential, but I wasn't able to speak from experience to myself in terms of like what the process of editing it was going to look like. And so there was a big question mark for me in terms of like, can I work with this writer to get this story to where it needs to be? And what does that process look like? I had no idea. So I wasn't able to use any information on that regard to like help me make the decisions.
One of the things that, when different people are reading different things, it's like different things do resonate with different people. And I hear I know it on the podcast as well. I know, you can have like similar stories. Like, I've spoken to lots of women who've done like big through hikes before, and then different people will get something different from each episode. And sometimes it's just a different person sharing their story in a different way, which will really, really sort of resonate. And with the title of your book, which I absolutely love, by the way, I think it's very clever, like blood, sweat, tears, and then like how that's broken down further. But the one that sort of stands out, with blood, and especially women and periods and menstruation, like 52% of the world bleeds. And it's so, and it's, to be fair, like when I was younger, it used to be something like you didn't talk about it. Whereas, it's almost like the shame of like bleeding. It's like, and it's an embarrassing. Whereas I don't know if it's just because now I'm older. Like I feel as though I talk about it with everyone. I was like, I was with what was it? It's like it's even quite funny. Like so when well, two memories. Is one is like I was out on I was out like through hiking in New Zealand, and I was looking around these mountains, and I've got it's on video, and I'm looking around, just going, oh my god, this is just so beautiful. And then it's like I don't know why I just feel so emotional. As tears start, coming out my eyes, and then I'm literally, oh god, I'm about to start my period. That's what it is. It's hormones go wild. And then even with like I'm this open with like my personal trainer, but he's so good with it because it's literally like, oh my god, I'm feeling so strong, like I want to lift super heavy. And other times he's like, how are you doing? I'm literally like, I'm dead. I'm tired. I can't move. Like I've got no energy. Like I can't even pick up the barbell. And so periods, like they, I'm sorry. I'm going on a rant here, but I'd love for you to share more about periods, menstruation. What have your experiences been like? Yeah, share, talk about periods.
Yay. Yeah. I mean, honestly, that was like such a catalyst for this book because when I went on my first book tour, my first book is about my Wonderland Trail hike, which was 11 days. And so I wasn't on my period on that hike. I don't talk about it in the book because it didn't exist. And people, anytime I was in a women's only space, which I often was, because my book was very much about like female empowerment and like independence, like all these like kind of women focused themes. And I would often speak to groups of women and inevitably they would say, what do you do about your period? Right? Like somebody would bring it up because we desperately want to talk about it. And every online forum, Facebook groups and stuff that are specifically for women for backpacking, there's always questions about periods. People want to talk about their periods. And I will say that as soon as somebody brings it up in a question form, other people want to tell stories, right? Like they want to give you their pro tips. They want to tell you what products they're using. And they also just want to be like, let me tell you about this hilarious time that I like bled all over the place. Because like those things happen and we are trained from such a young age to like be super secretive, super ashamed, like never tell anyone that we're on our periods and like hide our tampons up our sleeves and like all this crazy stuff. And it's like, no, like we want to talk about this like a normal thing that happens and we should be able to just talk about it. And so a big part of the catalyst for the book was like, clearly this is something people want to talk about and people want to hear about. And so that was like a huge part of the story. And so I also absolutely loved reading all of the stories about people's periods. And some of them were really funny and some of them were really gross. And my very dear friend who read the book kind of in its full form right before it went to print, who is a man, came to me and was like, I think this is awesome. I love what you've done here. There are so many bodily functions going on in this book. And I was like, yes, because the book is about bodies. The book is about relationship to bodies. And as women, we are just taught to like shame and hide our bodies and like not be real and physical and in our bodies. And we all are existing in bodies every day. And it's like, we should be talking about this. And like, yes, I want to hear about you in the backcountry, like bleeding all over your pants and then having to wear them for 3 more days afterwards. And because it does happen. And then when it happens to someone else, they'll be like, oh yeah, I read about this. Like I've heard these stories and it's okay that this is what's happening right now. And even like this book came out in May. And then I hiked some sections of the Appalachian Trail actually this summer. And I was wearing a Jolly Gear hiking dress. And for some just ungodly reason, they made the hiking dress sage green, this beautiful pale green, just a full solid color. And I was like, okay, like I'm a thru hiker. I'm disgusting. I'm dirty. I'm sweaty. I'm sitting in the mud. And I bled through my tampon and got blood all over the front of the dress and had to wear it like that for 2 more days before I got to town. And it's like a pale green dress with like a big blood mark on the front of it. And I was like, cool. I'm really glad I'm like living into this story and experience that I've just spent like the whole last year being like, these are stories we need to tell. We should not be ashamed. Like, be proud about your body and your bodily experience. And I was like, okay, I'm being tested on the thing that I've been saying. And it was great.
Yeah. But it's even, I mean, I had, I think it was with, there's another lady called, who I've interviewed on the podcast called Anna McNuff. And we were talking about periods, and we were talking about menstrual cups.
Hmm.
And like, and I thought, oh, this is a great idea. I'm going to take this out with me when I went onto the Appalachian Trail or whatever. And then it was only when I was out on the trail, I was thinking like, how do I keep my hands clean? Like, oh, how do I? So if I empty, so like dig a cat, pour it in the cat hole, but then like, do I just use like my water bottle to clean it, and I can't quite clean it, and then do I just like shove it back up? Like, and honestly, and it's literally just like I haven't really thought this through from a hygiene perspective. 'Cause
Uh-huh.
I'm also stoveless, and then I'm thinking, oh, but even if you did have a stove, would you clean it in like a stove, like to boil it and clean it? It just became a lot more complicated because I also know how feral I am. And so then, for me, it was later on, I was just like, actually, do you know what? Tampax is just the easiest thing. Pack out though. I do pack it out. And then I read somewhere else, someone else used like a peanut butter jar so you can seal it so the smell doesn't, get out and stuff. And you're literally just like, why this just hasn't been talked about? But also I had to hold my hands up because I think if you listen to the Tough Girl podcast over the years, I think I only became more comfortable talking about like periods and menstruation maybe a couple of years ago, probably as I'm getting into my early 40s, and it's like perimenopause, menopause, how does that affect women, especially women who are out through hiking with things like brain fog and energy levels and what's going on. And if you to be fair, I'm sure you'll be happy to share. What do you use for menstruation?
Yeah, I have kind of tried everything. And actually, like for trail specific, I have kind of gone back to like tampons and pads. I feel like everything has its plus and its minus, which is like so frustrating because nothing feels perfect to me. And some people are really dedicated to specific, like some people are really on the menstrual cup thing. But I agree, it is like a maintenance issue where it's like, okay, you're like cleaning it and like the hands, I'm also extremely dirty. And so I'm like, ugh, don't know about that. And also just like getting it out. Like, how much time do you want to spend like squatting with your ass out over a hole?
Yeah.
It's like dealing with the cup is kind of like like it takes a minute. And so it's like you're kind of there, like in this vulnerable position for like a little longer than I'm super comfortable with. But like pads honestly would be my favorite, like in general, because I'm like, I just don't want things inside me. Like, I'm happy to not deal with that. But when you're hiking super long distances, one, you're sweating. And so like then that's also absorbing into the pad. And two, like the friction, like the pad starts to like deteriorate and like shred throughout the day, but also like the stickiness, like you're moving a lot. It's like unsticking from your underwear. Like it's just kind of messy in terms of like, does that make sense? And then like the
Oh,
tampon thing, like, I don't know. Everything is just like not ideal.
yeah. I mean, I just think pads are the most disgusting thing ever. And that's just like, but again, just my personal opinion, what works for me. Like,
Totally.
I just want to use a tampon, forget about it, and then not even think about it. But also, I'm incredibly lucky because I know my periods are like super, super light. And so,
Mm,
for other people who are super, super heavy, like you may not necessarily have those options. So I know I can get away with, three of the little yellow Tampax like each day. It's like because it's just so
yeah.
light for me. Whereas other people will just be horrendous. But then everybody's different. Like I was speaking to not on the podcast, just a friend who's like they're going through menopause at the moment, or they've got some fibros or something. They've been bleeding for like 3 weeks, and I'm literally like
Yeah.
three weeks of what? So I'm like, I was like, is that normal? Like, I don't know because I'd never heard of it before. But then apparently it's a thing. And then we could, we could, sorry, I'm getting on a soapbox now because then we could start talking about, taking the pill. Is taking the pill
Uh-huh.
good for you? Like, because I've never taken the pill, but because then I think, extra hormones in your body, is that good for you? But then there's lots of benefits from it. So pros and cons, pros and cons. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and gosh, I'm loath to like go too deep into that subject because I really have a lot of qualms with sort of like the overprescription of hormones at the drop of a hat. It's, like we're putting 12, 13-year-old girls on hormones. And it's like, we don't really understand the long-term consequences of this. And when, in those forums, in the Facebook pages and stuff, when people talk about their periods, I see so often women saying, I just take the pill and so I don't have a period and I just keep taking it, like, because it's supposed to be like 3 weeks on, 1 week off, and that's when you bleed. And people are like, well, I just keep taking the on pills the whole time so I don't have to deal with it. And, on the AT, I didn't have my period because I was getting the Depo-Provera shot, which, like, studies show lower bone density and like have
Wow.
really negative side effects. And I had no idea. My doctor just gave it to me. And so, at first I was like, no period, cool. And then, now it's something I do deal with on trail because I'm no longer taking any kind of hormones. And honestly, like, it can be a huge hassle. And like we were just talking about, like, there's not really a perfect solution. There's not anything that I'm like, yes, this is
Mm.
perfect and I love it. It's awesome. But I think also, like, our cycles connect us to the moon, not to get too woo-woo spiritual about it. But I do think that there's something really natural and lovely about the things that our bodies do. And I want to celebrate that. And I want to think about what's going on in my body and not be manipulating it. And I think, you mentioned like talking to your trainer about like, today I feel great and super strong. And like another day you're kind of like a blob and just like, I can't do anything. And like, that is very related to our hormone cycles. Like, there are times of the month that we are stronger than usual, and there are times of the month that we need rest. And I think allowing our bodies to go through their natural cycles, and not just allowing it, but honoring it, recognizing it, noticing what those patterns are, and like planning a little bit around them to be able to say, like, I know I'm going to feel really good this day and I want to like do something strong, or I know I'm going to need to rest this day and I'm going to actually rest that day.
Yeah. I'm
It's
having a
such a
hot bath. I'm having Netflix. I'm eating chocolate because I need the magnesium. I'm eating more carbs because that's what my body wants.
there's something so powerful about that.
Yeah. And I was going to say, and I think it's really nice that you've got this incredible collection of stories by 26 women, you know, sharing about their body, the blood, sweat, and the tears, because every woman is different, every body is different, and it's great just to be able to get different perspectives. It may not, certain things may not apply to you, and that's absolutely fine. There might be certain things where you think, oh, okay, yeah, I haven't thought about that. Okay, maybe I could try that. What's next for you? Have you got another hike planned? What are you focusing on at the moment? Are you going on a book tour with Blood, Sweat, Tears? What's next?
I have done some book events with Blood, Sweat, Tears, and will continue to do those this year. And I'm currently working on publishing actually another gal's memoir who was one of the contributors for Blood, Sweat, Tears. So her name is Bethany Adams, and working together, she's writing a story about in a fastest known time record that she set up in the Adirondacks in New York State. And so that's sort of my creative project at the moment. And then having just moved to New Mexico, I'm just super psyched to like play on the trails here. The Continental Divide Trail goes through New Mexico. So I think I'm going to go just put my feet on that this summer a little bit. But I think I'm kind of settling into a little bit more of like getting into the earth. Like, I want to do some gardening and create some art and just kind of use my body in new ways this year. Like, certainly we'll still be hiking, we'll still be running, but focusing on some other more like diverse pursuits and learning new skills.
And letting your creativity out in all different ways. That sounds amazing. And
Mhm.
Christine, how can people connect with you? Where are you most active on the socials?
The best place to find me is Instagram for sure. My handle is Rugged Outdoorswoman. I do have a website, which is ruggedoutdoorswoman.com. And you can send me an email at ruggedoutdoorswoman@gmail. And I am taking a little bit of a step back from the social media space, but I'm still very accessible there.
No, that's awesome. I'll share the links to your social media and to your website and blog. But Christine, I'd love for you to share your final words of wisdom and advice for other women. Maybe in the space of like being creative, like following those creative passions, wanting to do something different, which is outside of their comfort zone, apart from, just do it. What advice would you like to share?
Yeah, I think the advice that I'm trying hardest to take right now is not to get stuck in ideas of who we are and what we're supposed to be doing. And those can be external ideas or internal ones. After many years of living on the road, it was a difficult mental transition for me to say, I'm going to stop doing this thing that I've been doing that's been such a part of my identity. And I'm going to try new things and explore some new things. And I'm going to let go of these ideas of who I've been trying to be this whole time and pivot.
Oh, pivot. I love it. Absolutely amazing. Christine, thank you so much for coming on the Tough Girl podcast and sharing more about your journey, your book writing, about blood, sweat and tears. I really appreciate the work that you're doing to increase the amount of women's stories out there that women can connect to and read and learn from. And best of luck with your next projects and pivoting. And can't wait to keep updated with all your future adventures and challenges.
Yes, thank you so much for having me on. This was an absolute delight.
Hey, tribe. I really hope you enjoyed that conversation with Christine. Please do go and check out her books. They are available on Amazon, Blood, Sweat, Tears. So it's a short story collection from 26 women plus hikers and runners about the experiences of being in a female body on trail. This group of intrepid and vulnerable athletes, writers talk periods, boob sweat and ugly crying. The trail is a place for healing and can show us what we are made of. But it's always us doing the hard work. Really enjoyed reading the book, and I think you will as well. So we talked about the Appalachian Trail. And as you probably know, if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, I have actually hiked the Appalachian Trail way back in 2017. Now, if you're interested in my experience about it, I do have daily vlogs from that walk. So there's like 100 vlogs available on my YouTube channel. But if you're thinking, Sarah, that's a lot of you, I know, then you can watch a 6-minute short film that I did, which is on my homepage. So just give you a rough idea. To be fair, there's a lot of tears in that one as well. I think I was so naive when I did the Appalachian Trail back in 2017. But if you haven't subscribed to the Tough Girl YouTube channel, please do go and check it out. There are vlogs from a lot of my hikes, from the Lycian Way, the Overland Track, from the Walking the Camino, from my New Zealand venture. Now, I still have vlog footage from the Southwest Coast Path, which I might have started editing, I might not have started editing, but so subscribe to see when those vlogs will actually go live. But basically, I hope I can get them out in the month of July at some point before I head off on my next adventure, which is going to be the GR10. So I'm going to be walking across the Pyrenees mountain range to celebrate the 10th year anniversary of the Tough Girl podcast. So walking from the Atlantic Ocean all the way through the Pyrenees mountains to the Mediterranean. So that's going to be super fun and exciting. There's definitely going to be a lot of sweat on that trail. Hopefully not a lot of tears. And I've tracked my period. And so I know that I'll be having it at some point during it. So that will be all fun and games. Looking forward to that. Thanks again for listening to the podcast. If you'd like to support the mission to increase the amount of female role models in the media, then please do visit Patreon, patreon.com/Tough Girl Podcast. And a big shout out to all of the patrons. It really does make a massive difference having your monthly or annual support. If you'd like to make a one-off donation, just like, do you know what, Sarah, you're doing a great job. I'd love to buy you a coffee. I'd love to buy you a hot chocolate. I'll treat you. You can visit the website toughgirlchallenges.com, and at the bottom there is a PayPal link. A one-off PayPal donation is always appreciated as well. What else do I need to say? I think that's pretty much it. I'm just training. I'm lifting heavy weights. I am trying to get my protein in. I'm trying to be kind to myself. I'm trying to recover. I'm trying to sleep well. I'm having my magnesium at night. I'm doing all the things that I need to do. If you want to be kept up to date with what I am doing, come and follow me on Instagram at Tough Girl Challenges. That's all it is, at Tough Girl Challenges. At toughgirlchallenges.com is the website. Anyway, enough chitter chatter from me. Thank you for listening. And all that's left for me to say is, wherever you are, whatever you are doing, give it your all, give it 110%, get after it, go for it. Believe in yourself, because I believe in you. Take care, lots of love, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.